There's a profound moment in every person's life where the struggle ends and true healing begins. It's in this silent space, in this territory of the heart, where we no longer need to prove anything, conquer anything, or transform anything through force, that Ho'oponopono finds us with open arms. This ancient Hawaiian wisdom, preserved through centuries and refined by the visionary Morrnah Simeona, teaches us something revolutionary. The problems we face aren't battles to be won, but memories to be purified. When we wake up in the morning and feel the weight of worries on our shoulders, when we look at that situation that seems to have no solution, when we carry grudges that hurt like open wounds, we're only seeing the surface of something much deeper. Ho'oponopono invites us to dive beyond appearances, to a place where we understand that everything we experience externally is a reflection of memories stored in our subconscious, memories that aren't just ours, but of our entire lineage, of all those who came before us. Just imagine for a moment that you could stop pushing against life's difficulties and simply allow a greater, wiser, and infinitely loving force to take care of everything for you. Imagine that instead of trying to control, solve, and modify each situation with your limited mind, you could trust in a divine process of cleansing that happens naturally when you speak 4 simple phrases: I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. These words aren't just empty sounds repeated mechanically, but sacred keys that open the doors to inner transformation. The priestess Morrnah Simeona dedicated her life to gifting us this modern and accessible version of Ho'oponopono, a practice that was originally performed in Hawaiian family circles to restore harmony among relatives in conflict. She understood that each of us carries within ourselves not only our own painful experiences, but the pain of our entire ancestry, and that by healing these memories in ourselves, we also heal our entire lineage, both in the past and in the future. Right now, as your hands rest gently and your breathing becomes deeper, allow yourself to receive this truth. You don't need to fight anymore. You don't need to carry alone the burden of solving every problem, fixing every relationship, transforming every difficulty through mental effort. Ho'oponopono is the path of conscious rest, where healing happens through loving surrender to the divine process that's already happening within you, awaiting only your permission to fully manifest in your life. When we say I'm sorry, we aren't blaming ourselves or taking on responsibility that isn't ours, but rather humbly acknowledging that in some mysterious way, through the complex networks of the collective unconscious and ancestral memories, we're part of the fabric of the experience we're living. It's a profound and liberating recognition that takes us out of the victim position and places us in the sacred place of conscious participants in our own healing. This first phrase is like opening a door that had been locked for a long time, allowing light to enter dark corners of our soul, where we kept resentments, confusion, and pain we didn't even know existed. Please forgive me is the second movement of this sacred dance, where we address not only the people we've hurt or who have hurt us, but the very divinity that dwells within us. It's a request for forgiveness that goes beyond rational understanding, reaching deep layers of being where the memories that repeat in painful patterns throughout our lives reside. When we ask for forgiveness in this way, we aren't begging or diminishing ourselves, but rather exercising the spiritual courage to acknowledge our imperfect humanity and our need for divine grace to transcend the limitations of our individual perspective. The third phrase, I love you, is perhaps the most transformative of all, for it's here that the real alchemy happens. When we declare love even in the midst of pain, even facing situations that cause us suffering, we're activating the most powerful frequency in the universe, the one that dissolves all other lesser vibrations. This love isn't emotional or sentimental, but rather the recognition that behind every experience, behind every person, behind every difficulty, exists the same divine essence that exists within us. It's a love that doesn't need reasons or conditions to exist, because it's the very nature of reality. Thank you completes this sacred circle of transformation, sealing the process with the energy of gratitude that is, in its essence, the recognition that everything is happening perfectly, even when our limited mind can't understand the greater purpose behind our experiences. Gratitude in Ho'oponopono isn't superficial or forced gratitude, but rather a deep trust that the universe is conspiring in our favor, that each situation, no matter how challenging, carries within it the potential to take us to a higher level of consciousness and love. This gratitude is born from understanding that we're eternally cared for, eternally loved, eternally guided by infinite intelligence that sees far beyond our limited perspective. When we give thanks in this way, we're saying yes to life, yes to the lessons it brings us, yes to the evolution process that constantly invites us to become purer and more luminous versions of ourselves. It's a gratitude that transforms even pain into medicine, even conflict into growth opportunity, even separation into an invitation to unconditional love. The original prayer transmitted by Morrnah Simeona offers us an even deeper structure for this purification work. Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Child, all in one. If I, my family, my relatives and ancestors have offended your family, relatives and ancestors, in thoughts, facts or actions, from the beginning of our creation to the present, we ask for your forgiveness. Let this be cleaned, purified, released, and cut all memories, blocks, negative energies and vibrations. These words carry ancestral power that goes far beyond our mental understanding, activating healing processes that happen in dimensions we don't even know exist. When we recite this prayer with sincerity and openness of heart, we're not only healing our own wounds, but releasing entire generations from painful patterns that perpetuated through our family lineage. We're contributing to humanity's collective healing, because each person who dedicates themselves to Ho'oponopono's inner work is raising the vibrational frequency of the entire planet. It's silent work, but deeply powerful, happening behind the scenes of apparent reality, in subtle dimensions where true transformations originate. Ho'oponopono teaches us that we aren't separated from each other, that we don't exist as isolated islands in an ocean of indifference, but rather as drops of water in the same infinite ocean of consciousness. When one drop purifies itself, the whole ocean benefits. When we heal a memory in ourselves, we create waves of healing that spread throughout the entire network of relationships and experiences we're part of, reaching people we don't even know, in places we've never visited, in times that transcend our current existence. The true revolution of Ho'oponopono lies in its radical simplicity. We live in a world that taught us that to solve problems we need complex strategies, detailed analyses, elaborate plans, and lots of mental effort. But this Hawaiian wisdom invites us to a completely different path, the path of divine simplicity, where 4 phrases whispered with genuine love can move mountains in our internal and external reality. It's like discovering that the key to a chest full of treasures was always in our hands, so simple we almost doubted its effectiveness. When we find ourselves in the middle of a family conflict, for example, our natural tendency is to analyze who's right or wrong, who started the argument, who should apologize first. Ho'oponopono offers us a completely revolutionary perspective. Instead of focusing on other people's external actions, we turn our attention to the internal memories that are creating the conflict experience. It's not about passivity or accepting inappropriate behavior, but about recognizing that what we see in the external world is always a reflection of something that needs to be healed within us. Imagine a situation where you feel deeply hurt by someone close to you. The traditional approach would be to confront that person, demand explanations, seek justice or revenge. Ho'oponopono invites us to do something completely different. Look within ourselves and ask, what memory in me is creating this experience of hurt? Not to blame ourselves, but to empower ourselves. Because if it was one of our memories that created the experience, then we have the power to purify that memory and consequently transform the experience. The practice of Ho'oponopono also teaches us about divine timing. Sometimes we repeat the 4 phrases and expect immediate changes to happen in the external world, but Hawaiian wisdom reminds us that healing happens first in invisible dimensions, in subtle planes of reality, before manifesting in the physical world. It's like planting a seed. Even if we don't see growth on the surface immediately, we know something profound is happening in the depths of the earth, preparing to emerge at the perfect moment. The deepest dimension of Ho'oponopono is revealed when we understand that we're constantly in communication with the divinity that resides within us. Each time we speak these 4 sacred phrases, we're establishing direct dialogue with our own higher wisdom, with that part of us that knows the divine purpose behind each experience, even the most painful ones. It's like discovering that we have an infinitely wise and loving counselor always available within our own heart, waiting only for us to turn inward with humility and openness. This internal communication doesn't happen through words or mental concepts, but through a more subtle language, made of feelings, sensations, intuitions, and synchronicities that begin to appear in our life when we regularly align with Ho'oponopono practice. It's as if the universe begins responding to us in unexpected ways. That phone call that arrives at the perfect moment, that casual encounter that brings exactly the guidance we needed, that opportunity that arises just when we were losing hope. Ho'oponopono also teaches us about the illusory nature of separation. When we look at someone who has caused us pain and can sincerely say, "I love you," we're transcending the illusion that we're separate entities hurting each other. We're recognizing that, at a deeper level of reality, we're all expressions of the same divine consciousness, experiencing different aspects of human experience through different characters in life's great theater. This understanding doesn't minimize the real pain we feel, but places it in a broader perspective that allows true healing. The traditional repetition of the phrases 108 times isn't just an arbitrary number, but an acknowledgement of the importance of loving persistence in the purification process. Just as a mother doesn't give up comforting her crying child, we don't give up comforting our wounded memories with these words of love and forgiveness. Each repetition is like a drop of sacred oil being poured on ancient wounds, each one contributing to a healing process that happens in layers, gradually revealing deeper levels of peace and understanding. If you've made it this far, if these words have touched something in you, know that this isn't coincidence. You were guided to this moment because your soul is ready to receive the healing that Ho'oponopono offers. In the comments below, if you feel touched by this energy of transformation, share a word, a phrase, a feeling that awakened in you. Your presence here is a gift not only to me, but to all those who also walk this awakening journey. And if you want to continue receiving these transmissions of love and healing, allow yourself to become part of this spiritual family that forms around ancestral wisdom. Together we're stronger. Together we heal more deeply. There's an aspect of Ho'oponopono that's rarely mentioned, but which is fundamental to its effectiveness, the need to surrender completely to the process, even when our rational mind doesn't understand how it works. It's like learning to swim. There comes a moment when we need to stop analyzing the physics of buoyancy and simply trust that the water will support us. Similarly, Ho'oponopono invites us to dive into the faith that there's a superior intelligence operating through these 4 simple phrases, a wisdom that transcends our limited understanding. This surrender isn't passive, but deeply active. It's the most intense activity that exists, the activity of unconditional love, absolute trust, conscious surrender to life's divine flow. When we say "I'm sorry" with this quality of surrender, we aren't just acknowledging our participation in a painful situation, but we're actively choosing to release our need to control, to be right, to prove our point of view. It's a symbolic death of the ego that opens space for something greater and wiser to take control of our experience. The purification of memories through Ho'oponopono happens similarly to how a river naturally purifies itself. We don't force the water to be clean, but we remove the obstacles that prevent its natural flow. Painful memories are like rocks and branches that block love's natural flow in our life. Each time we repeat the 4 phrases with sincerity, we're gently removing these obstacles, allowing our essentially loving nature to flow freely through all situations in our life. It's important to understand that Ho'oponopono isn't a manipulation technique or mental control that we use to make things go our way. It's exactly the opposite. It's a surrender practice that aligns us with life's natural flow, even when that flow takes us in directions our mind hadn't planned. Sometimes, the healing that results from practice is completely different from what we expected. We ask to heal a relationship and discover that true healing comes through lovingly releasing that person. We ask to resolve a financial situation and discover that true abundance was waiting for us on a completely different path. Ho'oponopono teaches us about the difference between solving a problem and dissolving a problem. Solving implies finding a mental solution, a strategy, a way to manipulate external circumstances to fit our desires. Dissolving means allowing the problem to transform in the light of love and understanding, frequently revealing that what we perceived as a problem was actually a disguised invitation to grow in love and wisdom. It's the difference between fighting darkness with a sword and simply lighting a candle. The most radical transformation Ho'oponopono offers is the change in our fundamental identity. Gradually, through consistent practice, we stop identifying as problematic people who need to be fixed and begin recognizing ourselves as pure expressions of divinity who temporarily forgot their true nature. This identity change isn't intellectual, but experiential, born from moments of grace that arise naturally when we create enough space through memory purification. The practice of Ho'oponopono also reveals the circular nature of time in our spiritual experience. When we purify a painful memory from the past, we don't just heal events that already happened, but we also transform our capacity to create future experiences. It's as if there's a sacred timeline where past, present, and future meet in the moment of healing, allowing transformation to radiate in all temporal directions simultaneously. This temporal dimension of Ho'oponopono explains why we sometimes experience surprising changes in old relationships after periods of intensive practice, even when we haven't had physical contact with these people for years. Healing happens at the consciousness level, where all connections remain alive and active, independent of physical or temporal distance. It's like adjusting one of a guitar's strings. All other strings are subtly affected by the tension change, creating more perfect harmony in the entire instrument. Ho'oponopono also teaches us about the importance of loving patience with ourselves during the healing process. We aren't machines that can be instantly reprogrammed, but sacred gardens that bloom in perfect time when consistently watered with love and attention. Some memories purify quickly, dissolving the first time we direct the 4 phrases toward them. Others are like onion layers, revealing deeper aspects each time we return to them with healing words. The beauty of this loving patience is that it becomes a model for how we treat not only our own wounds but also others' wounds. When we truly understand that each person is doing their best with the level of consciousness they have at the moment, that each apparently negative behavior is actually a cry for help from a wounded soul, our capacity to respond with compassion instead of judgment expands naturally. One of Ho'oponopono's most miraculous aspects is how it connects us with our ancestors' wisdom and simultaneously with our descendants' well-being. When we purify a painful memory we carry, we aren't just healing our own experience, but also releasing patterns that could be transmitted to future generations through what modern science calls epigenetics, the transmission of traumas and healings through generations via genetic expression. This ancestral dimension of Ho'oponopono invites us to see our personal practice as an act of sacred service to our entire family lineage. Each time we choose to respond with love instead of reacting with hurt, each time we opt for forgiveness instead of revenge, we're rewriting our family's emotional history, creating new response patterns that will benefit not only ourselves, but all those who come after us. It's a responsibility that's both humble and grand, being the healing link in a chain that extends both to the past and to the future. There's also a quality of sacred playfulness in Ho'oponopono that's frequently overlooked. When we begin to see our personal dramas as practice opportunities, when we can gently smile at our own emotional reactions and say, there I go again creating unnecessary suffering, we develop a lightness that doesn't deny healing's seriousness, but avoids the trap of taking ourselves so seriously that we lose sight of human experience's essentially playful nature. This sacred lightness is especially important when we practice Ho'oponopono with situations involving other people. If we become too intense or dramatic about our practice, we can inadvertently create more tension instead of dissolving it. The ideal is a quality of relaxed, confident, and natural love, like a mother singing a lullaby to her baby, not forced or artificial, but flowing naturally from the love she feels. Ho'oponopono teaches us that true spiritual maturity isn't about never feeling difficult emotions again, but about developing an increasingly loving relationship with all our emotional experiences. Instead of judging our anger, sadness, or fear as signs of spiritual failure, we learn to see them as temporary visitors who come to show us where there's still room for more love and understanding in our heart. As we reach the end of this journey through Ho'oponopono's sacred teachings, it's important to recognize that every word you've heard, every moment of openness you felt in your heart, every tear of recognition that may have sprouted in your eyes, all of this is evidence that your soul already knows these truths deeply. Ho'oponopono isn't teaching something completely new, but rather awakening the wisdom that always resided within you, the memory of who you really are beyond all the wounds and conditioning you've accumulated throughout this lifetime. The practice that begins now in this moment is a return home, a return to the simplicity of unconditional love that is your most essential nature. Each time you remember to whisper, "I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you," during your day, you'll be choosing the path of least resistance, the path that dissolves problems instead of fighting against them, the path that heals through love instead of trying to control through fear. Remember that Ho'oponopono isn't another task to add to your list of spiritual to-dos, but rather a way of being that can be naturally integrated into every moment of your life. When you're in traffic and feel irritation arising, you have the choice to feed that irritation with judgment thoughts, or gently dissolve it with the 4 phrases. When someone says something that touches an old wound in your heart, you can choose between reacting automatically or responding consciously with love and forgiveness. The beauty of this practice is that it grows with us, revealing increasingly deeper layers of meaning and power as our consciousness expands. What began as simple repetition of 4 phrases can transform into a way of life, a permanent frequency of gratitude and forgiveness that radiates naturally from our being to everyone who enters our energy field. Trust the process, even when your mind questions, even when results don't appear the way you expected, even when old patterns seem to return with force. Each moment of doubt is an opportunity to practice. Each challenge is an invitation to dive deeper into faith. Each apparent setback is actually an ascending spiral disguised as a circle. Ho'oponopono promises us that when we stop fighting against life and begin dancing with it, when we replace effort with grace, when we choose trust instead of control, we discover that the problems we thought were insurmountable giants were actually shadows projected by our own resistance to love. And in this discovery, in this sacred surrender, we find not only the solution to our specific problems, but the key to a completely new way of living, a life where every moment is an opportunity to practice unconditional love, and where every person we meet is an invitation to remember together who we really are.